welcome to another episode of the Classic Chloe Show. We talk about music and its effects on every aspect of our daily lives. I'm your host, Chloe Castillo, and I have another fantastic guest for you today. Egypt Brown is a mental health advocate, fight promoter, and founder of Fight for Mental Health. Egypt, welcome to the show. Great to have you on here.
Well, it's an honor to be here with you, Chloe.
So, I just want to dive into a discussion here about mental health, mainly being our main topic. And, I believe I'm a musician of, I'm not sure at this point, 15 years or so. And,
Okay.
I think that music really has a large impact on the mental health of people, just in general. I want to get your perspective on this. So, first of all, tell me before we dive into that, tell me where you come from as far as your fight with the mental health. What do you think is important about this, and why are you involved?
Well, great question, Chloe. I am actually from the Bay Area. I was born in the Bay Area, Northern California, and I had many experiences. Music. I come from a musical background myself. I play several instruments. Not everyone knows this. I even produce here. I actually have a studio in my office. But one thing that really drew me to mental illness is, first of all, I come from a family we're all about accomplishing things and going to the next level in everything you do. So sports was a huge emphasis, but not just sports. It was applying your mind and being excellent in all things. Academics was huge emphasis. And just in general, I wouldn't say ever forced, but I was highly advised to even get involved in local government activities and, just getting involved in the community, and just excelling, being very respectful to my elders and to seniors, my coaches, teachers, things of this nature. But one thing that I have an advantage is that I was able to see both sides of the bridge. There was a point when I was a teenager for personal reasons. I actually was homeless for 6 months as a 14-year-old, as my freshman year of high school. And instead of um, turning to like the different vices and a lot of the hostile influences that were in my community, we come from a region where you have wealth, but then you have some extreme savagery that mixes in with all the different elements, whether you're poor, rich, or in the middle class. And I was always a fighter. I love to fight. I come from a martial arts background too. So kicking ass was just a natural thing for me. And I enjoyed this. But being a male, and I don't like the whole like black male thing because I learned that I'm an American, and being an American, we all can be faced with different experiences, and we can't just decide. Like, I know people of all backgrounds that may have been in poverty, whether they're white, green, red, orange, or blue. Just like there's people that have wealth, and everyone's not born in the hood. So one thing that I decided is I got a job. I had multiple jobs really, and I still was able to I was able to buy clean clothes every day. I was able to learn how to make money the honest way, honest living. I actually bought a vehicle, so I was able to sleep in my vehicle and a park bench and go to my friend's house and do different events. But it was one of my first battles because and I understand a lot of these youth today. There's a pressure like I went to school with some of these kids had cars that were better than most people, most adults today. They're driving certain cars. Everybody was wearing certain clothes. So it wasn't that I ever at any point wanted to be, below a certain status. So that meant I had to work hard. And, being a male is different because I didn't feel like I could go to people and get sympathy. I didn't even want that. I just figured I'd work the hard way. I eventually got my own apartment, and the rest was history. I mean, I had an excellent career from that time to beyond. But what really showed me then is I had to make a decision that I wasn't going to I wasn't going to ever steal from anybody. And these are choices. And like, that's why, regardless of your situation or your scenario, doesn't mean that you have to set your mind to do evil, wicked things towards people. If anything, I learned more about the value of people trusting you and increasing your value. But I was a definitely a different individual at that time. I was pretty no nonsense. I mean, I'm sure there's some people from my region in high school that don't have a lot of nice stories and things to say about how I handled some of our situations. But I also built amazing relationships with my coaches, my teachers, my employers, things of this nature, and the community. I started learning the value because what I went through really inspired me. Later on, I did years later, after actually going to college and settling down. I ended up also being shot in both femoral arteries in a shooting that just made no sense. So the fact that I wasn't just able to live. I showed no fear in the situation. They said I ran 400 yards, two flights of stairs, bleeding out of both femoral arteries. It sounds like a movie, but it actually happened. And there was some moments where I guess I should have been more nervous or fearful, but I wasn't. But the bottom line is my mental resolve. A lot of people say, "Oh, you're so lucky to live," but actually, being a cripple, I had injuries to my legs, so I wasn't able, being an athlete, not being able to walk, and not even knowing that I was going to ever be able to walk. I had this decide in my mind, um, and I'll be honest, Chloe, I was in a pretty poor situation because a lot of the people, when some things like this happen, they blame you, and what you could have done, how you could have avoided these things, whatever. I could have zigzagged. Like, I guess people watch too many movies. It's like when you're at point blank range, there's no zigzagging that you can do. But the bottom line is, I decided at that moment I wasn't going to be a victim. And when I got out, be quick as far as what happened to my mental and what really cemented my legacy in my battle against my own. Um, when I was going through these things, the hospitals, they didn't give me any pain medication for my first 48 hours. So once I actually was able to they had me on the extreme pain medication. So I started getting to the point where I started to notice, like, I'm popping an extra pill here and there that I don't even need to take, even though I am in extreme pain without it, but I'm adding to it. And they do put limits on when you can get these pills. But regardless, I saw that I was overdoing it a little bit, and that scared me. So I completely got rid of my pills to start off with. I said, get these out, and because addictions, I've obviously never had an issue with drugs. I started to feel at that time I was starting to develop a habit behind this. So the first thing is recognizing, and then I found someone to hold me accountable that I always knew. Like, I started to feel like, am I turning into a druggie? Like, it was a horrible feeling. So I had to be real with myself. So I just had to, go with the extreme, which was nothing. Then on top of that, it was one night I saw a guy. He was getting out because I was still trying to drive around, and I was just ridiculous. I was still trying to do things like, it's like, how was I driving? I can't even feel my legs and things. Can't even really use them. I'm still finding ways to drive. Makes no sense. But there was one particular day I was starting to feel sorry for myself, and like, in my head, and um I wasn't being like a strong man in my head. And I saw this guy, he was smiling, he was laughing, and he jumped out of his car. He was with his kid. They were going in like almost like a junior amusement park. They call him like Scandia is like the name of this place. But long story short, he had the biggest smile. They're having the greatest time. And guess what I noticed? He was missing his legs. And that's when it hit me. This man has no opportunity to ever walk. And he's smiling, laughing. And I don't know that I won't be able to walk again. I haven't been told I could, but I haven't been told I could not. And I'm over here whining. So I said that right there triggered the next situation, which was that night. I went home and I said, I'm not going to bed until I find a solution. I get on the internet and I found a test case for a similar athlete who had a similar injury. University of Florida, they did it in the water. Rest is history. I got in the water. I started working for a few months, and I was able to walk on my own accord. No
Yeah.
physical therapist. I had no team. It was just I have my mental, and I actually transitioned there to Vegas, and I started working with the best athletes in the world, kicking their ass, whooping their asses in the gyms. Excuse my language. But I never told anyone that what had happened to me because I didn't want them to take it easy on me because of what I had gone through, or anyone to feel sorry, the victim mode. And so what I can say is my own experience. What we can say is mental illness. It comes in different phases. Economic disparities, or like people's financial situations, like whether it's Christmas time and they feel like I can't purchase a certain gift for my kids, or maybe their utilities are cut and they can't keep the power on for their family, or maybe whatever their employment is, they're just not making enough, or they have no employment at all. Just the lack of, or the lack of being able to afford things or provide, or some of these different issues, or where they live or not being able to live. I mean, homelessness is a huge crisis. And so one thing you can do as an individual is you can stay in that situation mentally. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges, is when you're in that situation, it's hard to kind of see yourself out of it. Um, one thing is I wrote down like my next moves. I was writing down what I was going to do next, and I was already deciding what I was going to do outside of that. And I never called myself or labeled myself homeless. I was just different. So I had a job during the day after my practice in school, and then I had a job late at night up until the morning. So I was never technically like out on the streets in a box. I just had to work to fill in the gaps. And so when you see your next solution being yourself, and not looking, because I could have been upset with everybody around me and said, this person's not doing this person's not helping me. I didn't think like that. I thought I still have to be elite, I still have to be excellent. I still was one of the best performers in academics in the country, even with that situation. So, with that being said, you have a number of issues. People don't look at substance abuse, like alcohol or drugs, as like a form of mental illness. When we say mental health, a lot of people think that is mental illness, but no, we all have, just like we can have physical health, we have mental health. There's different traumas and like experiences that people have had. So we can't necessarily say like if certain women's go through traumatic incidents or experiences, this is how fast you should heal, because
Right.
it's different for your physical than your mental. And if you don't address it like head on, then that can be an issue. Sometimes like injuries, like the athletes, like what I dealt with, can also trigger poor mental health, because as a man, or just as a athlete, a person who's always been gifted physically, to have that stripped away and not be able to walk at all, and like the treatment, like when you're on crutches or like a wheelchair, like everyone's trying to force themselves in front of you, nobody's trying to open the door for you. Like you see like the real like carnage and the evil that are in people's just daily activities. And so like if you sink in to that environment and you're not like thankful for what you do have, and if you're not appreciative of what you still are able to do, and like life in general, and like what you can still accomplish, then I think you settle into that victim and that dark place. And in regards to why I got involved and why I founded Fight for Mental Health, well, what I actually encountered, and again, I'm trying to give you the shortest version I can. I have represented and I've advised and worked with the best athletes, influencers, government officials, et cetera, in history, and or at least in our era. And what I saw with different athletes, because I've actually worked with not just fighters, but athletes of all sectors. And I was seeing these repeated patterns. I didn't know, even though I did go to college, one of my majors was psychology, believe it or not. But we were never taught mental health. That wasn't the terminologies that we were introduced to. So when I was seeing these different patterns, whether it was like self sabotage like, I'm organizing deals and things of this nature where they can get paid a lot of money and all they have to do is show up. And I know their financial situations and they're just not showing up and ruining opportunities. Or their family members, they're running them off. No one wants to be around them because the behavior they're demonstrating at home, maybe on the screen, their fans are excited about, their
Right.
achievements and their abilities. But the bottom line is these behaviors, even how many people would imagine that some of these amazing athletes are abusing their body with substance abuse, and drugs and chemicals? People don't necessarily, it doesn't necessarily seem like they would mentally correlate, but they were. And when I saw these, I'm sorry,
No, I just want to jump in here real quickly. So just go ahead and
please.
finish that sentence. I want to add something when you're done with that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
What I encountered is these repetitive activities, but it was happening from different individuals that didn't even know each other. And I'm privy to everything you can think of that happens with these individuals, and I keep these things private. But I was very concerned with what I was seeing. So I started to research and I started to find that mental health was the name, the term of what encompassed it all. And then I started calling the providers and doctors and learning all the different challenges and things of this nature, and how wicked our healthcare system and corrupt it is. And I found that there were people that wanted to get help, but they may not know how, or maybe they don't know how that help is going to change their situation. Maybe they don't have any hope, or maybe they did try and it wasn't the right fit, so they never try again. There's several different scenarios, but the bottom line is I understood from that moment that I was going to have to fight for mental health to be a positive, not for them to have mental health, because everyone has mental health. It's just, what is your condition? What is your, if you had a meter or a bar, or they were able to track or check what your mental health actually is, how can we confirm that you're in, not in poor mental health, but in great mental condition? I want to give you the opportunity to ask whatever questions you have.
Sure. So I just, what I'm hearing from you here, we have about 5 minutes left on here. So I want to just ask you one question before we wrap up. I just want to, I think that you mentioned a lot about perspective there. And I think that one of the biggest things you are touching on is that for mental health, for people to have great mental health, they need to have a certain perspective on their lives. And I think turning us all back into music a little bit, I want to kind of tie in the two. Um, and get your perspective on this. I think that a lot of the mainstream music that we hear today, and in, what's coming out of Hollywood, I'm sure since you're familiar with Hollywood, I'm sure you know a lot of that's very messed up. A lot of the messaging is completely, completely opposed to what we support as, as conservatives and people who just have common sense. And I want to
Yes.
get your opinion here because do you think that the mental health, a part of the state of the mental health of just, let's just say Gen Z, for example, because we all know they're like way off the charts wacky. I mean, I'm not to be just kind of, silly about this, but I know that there's a lot of statistics out there that, like the highest rates of LGBTQ, highest rates of depression, highest rates of suicide than like we've ever seen before. And surely that has to do with our mental health, of course. So I want to just get your opinion here. Do you think that music specifically, especially modern music and the messaging that it, is made up of, has an impact directly on people's perspectives about their lives and their mental health?
Chloe, it has a tremendous impact. The frequencies that they put in, not just the songs, but in horror movies or films or commercials. I work with several TV networks, and I mean, if you were to put a horror film on mute, I don't think you'd be so scared. So there are definitely frequencies. I mean, I don't know anyone who ever decides to memorize the Folgers Cut song or the McDonald's "We Love to See You Smile." Like, you could just sing certain jingles and people pick them up. Well, there's a certain part of your brain that captures that with or without your permission. And I mean, I've never heard of someone doing a drive-by to gospel music. You know what I'm saying? If I'm being honest, I've just never heard of this. Or, you know, committing violence to some classical music. I mean, I'm sure there's some exceptions out there, but typically there's a certain mood that that they actually have to get, like, even as athletes, like when we go to the gym, there's certain music we use to charge up, or before we used to go out into the field or onto the court or into the ring, we charge up through music. When people want to meditate, there's a certain tone and a mood that you want to set. So in order to do that, there are frequencies in the music that affect these individuals. And I think even more so, the youth were targeted because you look at many of their artists, the younger ones. I mean, before we had some very messed up artists before, but I don't think it was so common that you had so many dying so rapidly. You can I mean, it's a very common thing. We're almost desensitized. I know we're short on time, but we're almost desensitized to the amount of death that's promoted or we see from the actual artists. I mean, they're dying, whether it's violence or suicides and things of this nature. And so I don't know if it's so much on the monetary or making a transactional thing with this audience, but definitely they've been targeted with these frequencies.
Absolutely. And I think you made a really good point there. It kind of sounds like a Plato quote actually that I can never quote because I never know the exact quote, so I apologize. But it
It's
had
okay.
something to do with the fact that music is one of the only art forms, or only, only one of only very few ways of communication actually that's able to, portray a message, and it infiltrates you without actually your permission. Your mental faculties don't really have anything to do with music. What the kind of music you consume, the message is going to get across to you one way or another. In other words, it gets to your soul without going through your mind. Like you said, no one said, "Hey, I'm going to memorize the McDonald's song," but yet they can sing it back on, they wake up and they can sing it. It's not like it takes a lot of effort. So I think that music and the messaging of music, and you mentioned frequencies too. I think the frequencies in music as well also have a massive impact. This is something I have a hard time kind of debating when it comes to, is music or is music not important, and how is it, how does it impact society? I do believe though that the frequencies in music have very different effects on people in their lives. And so it's great to hear you say that, because it's kind of refreshing to hear someone actually acknowledge that the actual genre of music itself has a massive impact on people's perspectives. So Egypt, thank you so much for joining me today. I want to just get your final thoughts, about like 30 seconds or so, just on what do you think needs to happen for music to be great again, for the golden age of art and culture to actually have the best impact it can on people's mental health? What needs to be done from just the music industry on the whole?
Well, number one, this is a tremendous question as well. I believe it comes in three layers. One of them is to take over the distribution of the music, because whoever owns the actual distribution and who's um, sending this message, whether it's through a film or through the radio or through all the different platforms, it's for us as conservatives to take control of the actual distribution, because that decides the artist and the messaging when the platform that's distributed to the people is in the right hands, so to speak. Also, we can't just, I see this happening sometimes, is just because we're conservative, in order for the people to receive the message and receive, for us to be able to create a product that they are actually accepting of, it still has to be at the levels and
Exactly.
standards and expectations of the industry. You can't lower those expectations just because you want to have conservative values. Doesn't mean it can't be as good, but you have to work hard to make sure that the standards and expectations match the industry. The third is we've lost a lot of the artist development that used to really be a part of the industry. I mean, you couldn't just run in the studio and record songs and expect a label to take you seriously. And you also couldn't expect a label to distribute, or a distribution channel, A&Rs, to take that product and send it anywhere if it wasn't developed. So we need to have more artist development, but also the albums need to mean more. What we've lost is the craft of music. Like you have your Michael Jacksons or your Prince or Diana Ross or whoever you appreciated, James Brown. I mean, there's so many greats, but the iconic people spent time honing their craft first, And then they also hone the craft of that product. So they might have spent months working on that project before they actually release it. So I think those are the three things that as conservatives, we have to go back and take the channels of distribution and own our own. Secondly, we have to make sure that we're at industry standard. And third, go back to artist development and make sure that the product itself, there's product development to it. Those are my three.
When things go sideways, will you be ready? Meet the new Patriot Power Generator 1200, a solar generator that's lightweight with more capacity and more life cycles, and recharges twice as fast, all at a fraction of the price. In a blackout, power lights, TVs, medical equipment, even your fridge. No gas, fumes, or noise. It's safe to use inside your home. This is about peace of mind. To learn more about this amazing generator and get your free solar panel, go to Patriot TV Store and look for the solar generator banner.
Looking to give your wardrobe an upgrade? Well, look no further. Here at God Country & Kin, we've got you covered from head to toe, from shoulder to shoulder, and everything in between. Introducing our brand new Patriotic Collection, designed to display your patriotic spirit with a stylish look that's sure to turn heads. And the best part is, you don't have to break the bank to be your best you. Why wait? Visit us online or in-store today and elevate your style with God Country & Kin. God Country & Kin, where patriotism meets style. Shop now. Visit the Patriot TV Store and look for the God Country Kin banner to find the perfect outfit, shirt, accessory, or maybe a great hat. You can totally see yourself rocking this hat. I know you can. And check out all the great stuff we've got to show your patriotism at patriot.tv.
Think you need a new roof? Think again. Roofs aren't made like they used to be. They have significantly less asphalt in them than they did 20 years ago. That's causing roofs to wear out way before they should. Roof Max can extend the life of your roof for at least 5 and up to 15 years, guaranteed. 9 out of 10 roofs qualify. Restore your roof at a fraction of the cost for a new roof. Mention Patriot TV and get their $859 roof tune-up for free. Call 1-800-ROOF-MAX. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining me here. I think that what I got out of that answer was really fantastic. I actually love what you said there. So I would say, and as for conservatives, if you can, if you're, a conservative leader in the movement, invest in the arts, invest in culture. It's going to have a massive impact on people's mental health. And then therefore people's mental health will then, I think, impact the way our society is run, who's elected president. I mean, it just all kind of domino effect here. So I thank you for joining me, Egypt. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting about this and for sharing your story and for discussing where mental health impacts music and vice versa. And so I'm just super excited. I think we should have some more discussions in the future. I'd love to have you back on the show to talk more about this in more detail. But in the meantime, where can my audience find you?
You can find me on Instagram at official Egypt X. That's EGYPT for those that can't spell Egypt. It's at official Egypt X on Instagram. And we also have at official Fight for Mental Health and fightformentalhealth.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining me. Great to have you on here.
Thank you so much for having me, Chloe. It was my honor.
Thank you so much for watching this episode. Please subscribe to the Classically Chloe Show on Rumble, YouTube, and Spotify. And please also follow me at classically_Chloe on Instagram and Classically Chloe on all their platforms. See you next week. God bless.